when it is working, I think we are the best team in the nation. It's just going to be a question of making shots, honestly. Can we get going offensively? That's been our biggest issue. But we've seen that we're capable of doing that. I mean, we've got a very deep roster, and we've seen different guys throughout the season come in and have big games. When push comes to shove in the tournament, there's going to be that next guy up. And that team certainly has this attitude that, if it's not my night, it's another guy's night. Everyone's ready to step in and do the job that they need to do to get the W.
Hey, yo, as the bad guy would say, welcome to Friends in the Corner podcast, stories and topics from around Kentucky. I'm your host, Dan, coming to you from beautiful Lexington, and returning to the show for the first time in a little over a year, my old colleague, my good buddy, Mr. Greg Watson. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on again. It's been too long. We'll have to start doing this more often.
Yeah, man. And we gotten to reconnect here over the last couple of minutes, which has been awesome because there's been a few changes in Greg's life a little bit because you're no longer in Kentucky, man. What the hell's with that?
Man, I jumped ship, if you will, headed down to Charlotte. I've been in Kentucky for my entire life, and I was just looking for a bit of a change of scenery for a little while, some new opportunities. So a friend of mine from college was moving down here for work, and I said, you know what, buddy, I'm gonna tag along and check out the other Queen City, a little farther south, and see what might happen. But my heart will always be back in Kentucky. So
I was gonna say, have you ran into UNC and Duke fans out there so far?
Unfortunately, there are a few more of them here than there are back in Kentucky. So, just biting my tongue because you really don't know. So, I'm been on the job hunt. I got to make sure that I don't ruffle any feathers before I get myself gainfully employed, and then I'll pour on the insults.
There you go, man. You gotta back your horse here. So, well, man, I'm appreciative of the power of technology that even though you're in Charlotte and I'm in Lexington, we're still able to do this show, man, and just reconnect like this. And it's awesome that we finally are able to do this show. So for those who are longtime listeners of the podcast, 2 years ago, almost to the day 2 years ago, you and I were promoting to do a March Madness show for the 2020 season, which a lot of us were kind of hyped out about because that was a really good Kentucky team that could have gone far. Also, for me, that was when the Dayton Flyers were going to get a number 1 seed. So I was giddy with excitement. But then literally the week we were promoting the show, everything shut down. The tournament was canceled. The SEC tournament was canceled. Keeneland was canceled. We lost our jobs, and everything happened all at once. And man, a lot's changed in 2 years.
You could say that. Yeah, it was unfortunate timing because that Kentucky team was shaping up to be something special. So it was a real shame that got cut short. And then of course we all know last season wasn't all that spectacular, but here we are 2 years later, little different world, but tournaments happening again, and March Madness feels like March Madness again, which is just really exciting. The arenas are going to be packed. The fans are out in droves. Kentucky will be taking over Indianapolis for the first couple of games, and then national championship back in New Orleans, where special things seem to happen for the Kentucky Wildcats. So I'm excited.
Well, awesome, man. Well, hey, Greg, since it's been so long, and I'm excited to have you back, and we're going to be talking about Kentucky in this journey to hopefully get the number 9 title 10 years later after they got the first back in New Orleans. But for my listeners who may be new to the show, can you tell my listeners a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
Yeah. So born and raised in Kentucky, just outside of Lexington, a little small town called Midway. Um, went off to college up in Ohio at Denison University,
Go
studied
Bucks.
film. Um, but yeah, lifetime Kentucky Wildcats fan. It's a family tradition. Everyone gets together to watch Kentucky play in the tournament. A few alumni in the family, but as you know, living in Kentucky now, you don't have to go to the university to be a diehard fan. It's definitely a big part of my identity growing up. I mean, my bedroom was painted UK blue. The walls were covered in newspapers and posters. So, Kentucky sports has always been one of my biggest passions. But I studied film in college, then post graduation moved back to Kentucky. Was working with you at Castle and Key Distillery for a while. Love some bourbon, and now I'm down here in Charlotte. So
All right, man. You're just trading fan bases all over the place. Though you go up to Ohio and Buckeye country, and now you move down to UNC Duke country, but you're bleeding blue throughout the process, man. So I appreciate you for it.
hey,
Um, and like you were just mentioning, dude, a lot has changed over the last couple of years, especially when it comes to this Kentucky team and this Kentucky program. What a difference a year makes. Starting off in 2021 season, they went 9-16. And yeah, not a good year, losing some really, really crappy matches to some really, really terrible teams. I'm still kind of befuddled myself over that last year. But this year, coming back at it, 26-7. We didn't win the SEC tournament, but history says that's not always a bad thing.
that's very true. Didn't
So,
win it in 2012 either. So
no, and one of our 2 losses that year. Um, but what are your thoughts looking at this team, night and day difference? Like, what do you feel has just grown and changed so much from the previous year to this year?
I mean, I think the biggest difference between last year's team and this year's team is experience. I know Cal said at the end of last season that he has to look at the way that he's recruiting, the players that he's bringing in, and figure out other ways to win basketball games. It's not always going to be with 5 top 100 recruits and NBA draft prospects. So he went out to the transfer market and brought in some fantastic players. Obviously, I mean, we'll start with Oscar,
Yeah.
player of the year candidate. Got him from West Virginia halfway through last season. So, he got to experience a bit of those bad times at Kentucky. So, he, had a fire to come in here and turn things around for us this year. And then obviously Kellen Grady, and then Davion Mintz returning from last year's team as well. Some unfinished business for him. He said, I didn't want to leave without getting the true Kentucky experience. I wanted to come back, win games, and hopefully get that national title. So, I mean, I think the biggest difference this year is going to be that experience for sure.
And it is kind of crazy to look at this team where, Calipari, he used to start 5 freshmen all the time, and now we're down to starting 1 freshman. And he has been rocked. I don't think there is another coach in the league right now who's taken advantage of the transfer portal as much as he has, with Oscar, with Wheeler, Toppin, Mintz, Grady, Frederick to a degree. And these not all of them have been some have been diamonds in the rough, but for the most part, it's been something we haven't seen in a while, is Kentucky basketball with experienced players. It felt like that not too long ago. We were just talking about how we had an all starting freshman 5, and now the experience level is just out of this world. And now they're just getting better and better, especially when you look at Oscar. And it's just awesome to see just where where Cal's going, because everyone, I felt like, believed like Cal's a good recruiter, but is he really a good coach?
I mean, I think he's proving that he is, in fact, a very good coach. I don't put much stock into that argument that Cal only knows how to recruit. Is he the best recruiter in the nation? Quite possibly. But you cannot have the amount of success he has had just by getting good players. I mean, I don't think there's a more difficult task than to try to take a young team year after year and figure out how to coach them up to the level that we expect at Kentucky. Um, you know, every single year he's talking about how he's having to change his coaching style to fit the players that he has, that he's making it all work. And, this year, I think he's a bit lucky to have some more experienced guys, but they're also learning a new system at Kentucky. So, while they have a wealth of experience, they don't know what Kentucky basketball is all about, coming in. Now I'd say all these guys, they understand it fully. Also, last year, fans weren't in the stadium.
Yeah.
One of our biggest, boosts is that Rupp Arena crowd and Big Blue Nation. So, those guys that came back after last year are getting to see what it means to play for Kentucky basketball. I've seen quotes from them throughout the year talking about just how important the crowd has been in some of these games. I think about that Alabama game where we made that run at the end of the first half to get it back close and go on and win that game. Last year that doesn't happen without the crowd getting behind the team and really pushing them forward. So it's been a really fun year, and we're very lucky to have John Calipari at Kentucky.
It's probably one of the first years I felt refreshed about having Cal on as our coach. For the last couple of years, I've kind of been known for being a little bit of a Cal hater because of the in and out plays in the tournament where we wound up losing before the Sweet 16 and some other times. And just, I've talked about how we've only won one title in 10 years. And, but now it's starting to grow on me that, okay, Cal's got a good team. We are one of the better teams in the tournament. Our division is very favorable to us as well. So, I mean, I could see us getting into the Final Four at least. And I could see us win the national title, but at the very least, I could see us getting into that Final Four from where we're sitting.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a favorable division there. You know, I don't see any games that overly concern me. I think Baylor is obviously the weakest number one seed in the tournament. Arguments could be made that they shouldn't have been a number one seed. So I think there's a good chance to make the Final Four, and I think there's a very good chance to make the national championship. I think Cal's got these guys in the right position. We had a really bad game against Tennessee in the SEC tournament, but that's the kind of defeat that is going to make these guys fight even harder. And throughout the season, we've seen it. We've had some of our best performances after some of our worst. I think about, I can't remember who we lost to right before we went into Kansas and, embarrassed them. Same thing, putting up 107 points against Tennessee. It's been a lot of, peaks and valleys throughout this season. But I think that is what is going to help us, get to the Final Four in the tournament this year.
I was listening to Kyle Tucker, I think it was Kyle Tucker or John Hale, one of the two. But they were talking about when Kentucky is on it, when they're on top, when they are clicking on all cylinders, they're the best team in the country. The problem is getting there. And sometimes, they fall on their sword. We kind of saw that against Tennessee this past SEC tournament. But when they are clicking, I mean, it's lights out basketball when you watch them play.
Absolutely. When it is working, I think we are the best team in the nation. It's just going to be a question of making shots, honestly. The defense is always there. These guys are always going to fight hard. They're athletic and they're disciplined. The difference will be, can we get going offensively? That's been our biggest issue. But we've seen that we're capable of doing that. I mean, we did very poorly against Tennessee, but we also dropped 107 points against them just a couple months ago. So, it's really a question of, can we get hot when we need to? We've seen it happen in the past with Kentucky teams that we go cold in big games. But in most of those big losses, there's always been one guy that we turn to go out there and make a difference. But I feel like with our team this year, there isn't just one guy that we're going to hand the ball to get it done. We've got a very deep roster, and we've seen different guys throughout the season come in and have big games. Keon had that big game against Kansas. Toppin's had a couple of big performances this year. We've had to play games without Wheeler. We've had to play games without Ty, and that's forced the other guys on the roster to step up. So when push comes to shove in the tournament, there's going to be that next guy up, and that team certainly has this attitude that if it's not my night, it's another guy's night, and everyone's ready to step in and do the job that they need to do to get the W.
Absolutely, man. And we're hoping it brings some energy that when we get into the tournament here. Some things I want to touch on before we dive into the bracket. I do want to ask you, going back into the SEC tournament here, just some thoughts on the different games. We played two. We played Vanderbilt and we played Tennessee. And the Vanderbilt game, we were very close by, which Vanderbilt obviously did not make the tournament, but it was a very competitive game back and forth. What were some of your thoughts watching that first game against Vanderbilt?
Yeah, that was a tough game. And they played us tough in the regular season as well. There's just kind of something about the Vanderbilt team this year that gave us a little bit of trouble. But we went in there and we got the win, regardless. They've got one of the best offensive players in the SEC in Scottie Pippen Jr. He's the kind of guy that can turn the tide of a game, no problem. Being the pure scorer that he is. So that was a tough game, but we put in some hard work and got the win, and then we went on to play Tennessee and had just a dreadful performance, to say the least.
And that's, Tennessee's one of those really hyped up teams as well right now, that some people consider them to be one of the mid-level dark horse teams that could make the run into the championship. And, they talk about their size, and I know we threw up tons of points on them before and then had this performance. What's your thoughts on Tennessee? Do you actually think this is a pretty well-equipped team, or do you think it's just overhyped and we just had a bad day?
As much as it pains me to say it, I actually think this Tennessee team is really good. And I heard a lot of people arguing that they probably should have been a number 2 seed in this tournament. And I kind of have to agree. And Duke would have been the team to drop to number 3, absolutely. So, I don't like admitting that Tennessee has a good team. I also think that if we had made 2 or 3 more shots, we would have beat them. We shot 2 for 21 from 3-point range, something crazy like that. So we made it easy for Tennessee to win that game, but they've also had some other really good games this season. And I think they're a well-equipped team, and I could see them making a deep tournament run, but I also think that they could also lose in the first round. I don't think that they've always been on their game. So we'll see, but they're unfortunately a pretty good team this year.
Yeah. And, looking at their bracket, it kind of like ours, the South is not as strong either. You do have Arizona there. You do have Illinois, who could be, come down the lane. A lot of people have hyped up about Chattanooga making it into the Sweet 16. Loyola, we all know the stories of Loyola. So it's not impossible, but it's not surprising if they could, like I said before, fall on their sword also in this division of the bracket. But specifically, I do want to focus on Kentucky's side, the Eastern side. We were talking about a few of these matchups here, but What do you think of Kentucky's positioning here, and what's some potential matchups you see in this side that intrigue you?
Yeah, I mean, I think they got it right with Kentucky's positioning. Obviously, number 2 seed. If we'd won the tournament, I think there would have been the SEC tournament. There would have been an argument for a number 1 seed.
That's what they were saying. If we would have won, Baylor would have dropped, and we would have been the number 1 seed.
Yeah. So being the 2 seed in the East makes us the highest seeded number 2 seed in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty fair. I'm a little sad to see that they put Murray State right next to us for a potential second round matchup. I would like to have seen them in another division making a deep run. A little unfortunate that we're most likely going to have to play them so early on, because they're a really good team, and I was excited to see what they did in the tournament. But
dang, they're 30-2.
they've had a very, very strong season. And I don't think that'll be an easy game. And they'll be very excited to play Kentucky, being in the same state. That's a big opportunity for them. And there'll be a lot of fans in the crowd that night. I mean, just up the road in Indianapolis. So that could be a really, really fun matchup. But outside of that game, I'm pretty excited to see Virginia Tech take on Texas. They had an incredible run in the ACC tournament. Really exciting team to watch. I had some of my family from North Carolina down here this weekend for the tournament, as well as my family back home, and they're UNC fans. But we were watching some of the ACC tournament, and I stayed up to watch Virginia Tech beat Duke, and it filled my heart with joy to see that happen. And I've got to give a little shout out to UNC for beating Duke in Coach K's last home game of the season.
Oh yeah,
or of his career, mind you. So, thanks UNC for that one.
One of our content topics we're going to be talking about down the line here is Coach K's retirement, and I mentioned to Greg that he can be as honest and candid as he wants to be about it. So I'm excited when we get to that segment here.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that Virginia Tech team, nonetheless, is pretty exciting. And I could see us matching up with them in the Sweet 16. They'll have to go through Purdue in the second round. But they've shown that they can beat good teams. So I'm pretty excited about that. Then we've also got North Carolina and UCLA in our region. It's a bit of a blue bloods region. Only team we're missing is Kansas, but obviously they're over there in the Midwest. But you've got three very historic basketball programs all in the same division. So that'll be exciting. Not sure that we'll get to play either of those teams. They'd have to make it past Baylor to get to the Elite Eight. But kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, and these aren't the North Carolina and UCLA of games past. So I mean, they are blue bloods, quote unquote, but they're lucky to be here in some regards.
I mean, UCLA started off the season pretty good, and of course they've got former Kentucky player Johnny Juzang out there, but they did not have the season that they were expecting. And they've got that 4 seed, but they play in the Pac-12, and that's not a strong basketball conference. I'm just gonna say it. And they didn't really beat anyone all that good this year, if I'm not mistaken. So not a team that concerns me, to say the least.
A team that's kind of interesting for me in this bracket, and more than likely, if we probably won't see them when we get to the I guess if we would see them, it would be the Final Four, I guess, or the Elite Eight. But St. Mary's is one of those teams that's always kind of a quiet soldier. I call them the Gonzaga killers because they always seem to not trip Gonzaga up when they least need it. And St. Mary's is always one of those like well-coached teams that you don't hear a lot about, but they're good. And I could see them, knocking Baylor off, honestly, if they get to that point. I can see them making waves over into the Sweet 16 here.
Absolutely. I mean, they beat Gonzaga this season once again. They did also lose to them both in the regular season and in the tournament, but they're a very good kind of dark horse team. I would not be surprised to see them make it to the Sweet 16 to take on Baylor. They'll be a fun team to keep an eye out for. Absolutely.
Looking at the rest of the field here for the entire bracket, I just want to highlight a few more teams that I wanted to get your thoughts on. One team that I'm kind of surprised to see make it because their season has just been so WTF is Alabama. And Bama can be sometimes the giant killers beating Gonzaga and Baylor, but then they go lose to Missouri and LSU. And I don't get it, but they made it in. So what's your thoughts on Bama?
Yeah. I think they're deserving of their spot in the tournament. But a little surprised to see them up at a 6 seed. But they're a good team that on their day, I think can hang with any other team out there. I don't see them making a super deep run in the tournament, but an intriguing one to watch, I guess I'll say. Certainly didn't have the great season that we thought they would, but I mean, the whole SEC has just really beaten each other up this year. And that's probably why we only ended up with 6 teams in the tournament, which I thought was kind of low for the SEC because a great conference and a lot of teams, going on runs and then losing a few games in a row. It was a very tough regular season for everyone in the SEC, really.
It's funny to say because we were talking about Vanderbilt just a little bit ago and how good and well coached they were, and Scottie Pippen Jr. being on there, and they're not here. A&M's not here, and it Florida, yeah. But LSU is somehow on here after they fired their coach. But this SEC basketball was actually really good this year in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, like you were saying, it's like it is kind of interesting to see that. And I know you want to talk a little bit about this, that the amount of SEC teams that are in here compared to the amount of Big Ten teams that are in here.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how that happened. I mean, I heard a lot of people saying this year, announcers and analysts during games that Kentucky was playing, that the SEC was quite possibly the best basketball conference in the nation. And then 9 out of 10 Big Ten teams end up in the tournament. I mean, somebody want to tell me how that happens? I mean,
how is Rutgers in here and not A&M?
Yeah. Obviously the selection committee wasn't watching any of the conference tournaments. Texas A&M played some fantastic basketball and came very close to winning the SEC tournament and getting an automatic bid. They are definitely, more willing or deserving of a position in this tournament than Rutgers, Michigan, Indiana. I mean, why, Michigan, why is Michigan with 14 losses an 11 seed in the tournament?
And Vanderbilt's not here. It's like, yeah, I know. I'm kind of flabbergasted too. Maybe there is some favoritism. And granted, I'm a UK fan, but I'm also a Buckeye fan as well. And so, I'm happy to see some Big Ten representation, but it is a little overkill, I think, compared to what it could have been.
I'm not sure that 9 teams should come from one conference when the next highest is 6.
Nope.
I feel like 7 teams is about the max from any conference you should be getting, unless it's just an exceptional year. And I looked at the season that a number of these Big Ten teams had, looking for some of these, big wins that they're talking about. And, I guess, I'm looking at Rutgers and they had a nice run in February where they got some wins against ranked opponents, but they're also just other teams from the Big Ten. I don't see big out of conference wins for any of these Big Ten teams, you know? And if you ask me, that's just how conference play goes. Teams are going to have their nights. And none of them are going on the road to get any of these games, you know? And
Right.
they're playing everyone in the conference twice for the most part. So between two games, you're liable to get the win at home. So I'm not seeing anything on for any of these teams in their in their schedule that makes me think that they absolutely should be in the tournament. So
Great point you made there. I did not think about that. The Big Ten is actually a smaller conference than the SEC, less members, so they can play each other every team twice. We can't do that in the SEC. We don't
we
have redemptions.
we
So,
did not get the chance to play Auburn again this year,
oh,
you know, and that was a game that we almost won, despite the fact that Severe Wheeler went down, like early in the first half. We were without our top guard in the game, and Tai Tai was still, it was earlier in the season for him, and he stepped up big in the games after that while Wheeler was out. He, came in and he played really strong minutes, but at that point, we didn't know how to play without Wheeler, and we still almost won that game
yeah.
at Auburn, so
Speaking of Auburn, that was one of the other teams I want to talk about here because here in the SEC here with Kentucky, we've heard all about Auburn this season, and they've been good at home. On the road, not so much. And they're here. They've got a number 2 seed, just like us. They're playing Jacksonville State, and I wanted your thoughts. What do you think of Auburn as a potential Final Four team? Do you think that they have the ability to do that run, or you think they are probably going to hit a few walls on their way there?
You know, they're a good team, and I think they've got a fairly clear path to the Elite Eight, no problem. There's really no one down there that I see as being much of a stumbling block. But once they get to the Elite Eight, I think they're going to have to match up with either Kansas or Iowa. Iowa at a 5 seed, I think is a bit low for them. I watched them play the other night, and they've got guys that can shoot the ball really well. And teams that can shoot the ball well tend to do, really well in the NCAA tournament. We've just seen that over the years, that if you've got a team of experienced guys that can shoot the ball well, you can go really far. So, I think Auburn has the potential to make a deep run in the tournament. But, clearly they are vulnerable at times, that it has not been a perfect season for them. I mean, close to it. But they have lost a couple games on the road, and they've had some very close ones that they've pulled out as well. So it hasn't been the most convincing, and they spent most of the season up there at number 1, but they lost to Arkansas this year, and they lost to Tennessee, and then they lost to A&M in the tournament, and so when they matched up against other really good teams, they stumbled. I'm looking at their schedule right now, and they didn't have to play a lot of really tough games.
Yeah.
They did not have to play Tennessee twice. They did not have to play us twice. Looks like they also didn't have to play Arkansas twice. So maybe if they play some of those teams more than once, they got a few more losses on their record.
But they did get to play Missouri twice, and they got to play South Carolina twice, and all the schools don't matter. So
Exactly.
all the schools that are not here is like, so
but
no.
They've got size, they've got the guard play, they have the tools, and they've got a decent coach in Bruce Pearl. Another guy that I'm not too fond of, if I
really?
to be honest.
I love him, man. He's got passion and energy and stupidity, and I can get behind Bruce Pearl, man.
Well, that makes you in the minority for Kentucky fans.
Well, did you hear the rumor that there was a potential of him interviewing for the U of L job?
I did hear that, and I was like, well, that's I didn't put much stock into it. I thought, why would Bruce Pearl want to leave Auburn for Louisville right now? Um, they might have approached him, but I don't think for a minute he entertained the idea. If I'm being completely honest, you don't leave a program where you're having a lot of success to go to a program that has been so troubled in the past, especially for a guy that has been in similar positions to what Louisville is now. Problems with the NCAA. He
Yeah.
needs to keep his nose clean, and Auburn seems to do a pretty good job of keeping things above board. So um, I think he's in the right place for now.
I like the memes I was seeing about it. It's like, oh, it made sense for Louisville to go after him. It's like, do you have it? Do you have issues and questionable history with the NCAA? Come to Louisville.
I mean, on the surface, it's a perfect match, but I mean, part of me kind of wanted it to happen just to see how bad it could be for Bruce Pearl to be at Louisville, but
Can,
and we'll see.
can it get any worse at Louisville? I mean, just in general, the entire college, the university, the athletic department is like,
I don't think it can, but you never know.
you can always be proven wrong. Absolutely. I hate to see it happen to a better college, man. It's just one of those things. So, but as we're wrapping up here, looking at the tournament schedule here, let me get your thoughts here. Whether you want to say your Final Four, your predicted Final Four, or your championship. Well, what would you say you're looking at championship wise from this bracket?
I mean, Kentucky, I'm putting in my national championship.
Okay.
I always do, because I'm a diehard Kentucky fan. But I really think that this team has what it takes to get there, kind of without a doubt. So I'm picking Kentucky for my national championship, and then on the other side of things, um,
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Rubber match for real?
I, I I've got my bracket here, and I've put Tennessee. Is this just one bracket? But I mean, I could see Tennessee making it to the national championship, or potentially Iowa. Actually, really like Iowa's team this year. And then you can never count Kansas out of it. Arizona might be a good team, but they didn't have the toughest schedule this year. So I'm not sure how they're going to do matching up against some of these other big teams. And if Tennessee continues to play the way that they have been playing recently, they could make a deep run into the tournament.
I do have Iowa in a few of my brackets too. I do have a one bracket. I know I have Kentucky versus Iowa with Kentucky going over. I feel like that's fitting after beating them in a bowl game in football. So let's just keep railing it into Iowa. So
I'm here for it. Elsewhere in my Final Four, I actually have Arkansas in my Final Four coming out of the West.
okay.
I could see them taking down Gonzaga, and then yeah, so Arkansas, UK, Tennessee, and Iowa is actually what I have in this bracket in front of me right now. But I could also see Kansas making it to the Final Four. I mean,
You are an SEC fan.
I am an
You've been
SEC
3 out of 4 teams are in that.
Maybe it's just because I've watched these teams play this year more than the others. But I see a lot of fight out of these teams, and I think that could.
It just means more to put that many in the Final Four there for you. I understand it. So,
And maybe it's just that I don't want to see other teams play. I'm an SEC man, but we could end up seeing Duke in the Final Four.
oh hell no.
I don't want to. It would be kind of nice to beat them, but I'd rather just have them get knocked out early so that we don't have to hear about Coach K.
There is a statistic out there that the most matchup upsets in the history of March Madness. Whenever you're picking your bracket, a 15 seed over a 2 seed has happened more often than any other matchup. And oh my God, CSU Fullerton. I don't even know what college. I don't even know. I think that's a California school, Cal Fullerton. I am praying to God that you are that 15 seed that knocks off Duke. I don't want to see the parade of Coach K through this tournament. I just want it to be done. I want him to go away so we can actually focus on real championship basketball.
I am with you all the way. Or second round, Davidson, just up the road, right outside of Charlotte here, Davidson University.
Home of Seth Curry, yeah.
Cross state team knocking out Duke. I would enjoy that.
As we're kind of winding down here, that was one of the things that was on the list here I wanted to talk to you about, and that this is the last year for Coach K at Duke. And for better or worse, I will give the devil his due that he is probably the greatest coach in the history of college basketball. Some people would say he is. I'm not quite there yet to say you are the greatest coach. I mean, Adolph Rupp and a few others in the history, Coach Wooden for UCLA. But I mean, he's there. He's been at Duke forever. He helped build the program into what he is. And, it's going to be interesting to see, kind of like UNC, if they're going to have a few years where they're going to fall back before they get better again, if we will see them in there. But it's going to be interesting to see what these older coaches that leave, like Roy Williams, like Coach K, like Boeheim and Syracuse, what kind of position do you leave the programs after you depart, if they're going to keep going on afterwards? So I don't know. And I'll give you the floor here. Your full honest thoughts, for better or worse, on Coach K.
All right, here we go. It's undeniable that Coach K has had a lot of success in his time at Duke, and is a great coach. As much as it pains me to say that, but I don't like the guy, to be perfectly honest. I really don't like that he announced his retirement before the season started so that he could have this entire 1 year parade, my final goodbye. He couldn't just wait till the season was over and announce his retirement. He had to make it all about himself.
At least he didn't say, "Hey, I'm retired. Surprise, I'm not," like some Tampa Bay quarterbacks do.
Yes. But I also hear he's keeping his office at Duke, and he is going to be around the program. So will Duke really have that big of a fall off? I'm not 100% certain. It sounds like he might still be there behind the scenes, helping things along, preventing what has happened to UNC with the departure of Roy Williams, which was different circumstances. Roy Williams' health was not all that fantastic, so he, took more of a clean break from coaching and really, stepped away from it. But, Coach K might be retiring, but he's not leaving basketball. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Duke continued to find success. But I'm praying that there will be a fall off, and it will take a couple of years until I have to worry about Duke being good again. But yeah, I mean, Coach K's had some good teams over the years. He's had some real nasty players.
Grayson Allen, all those guys. Those are great.
Christian Laettner.
Christian Laettner. Oh, how can we forget?
You have to think what kind of coach he must be if seems like there's always someone on that Duke roster that just plays kind of dirty, and it's always been that way. And so, I just have to question the kind of coach that allows that to happen time and time again. Is he that great of a guy? He's also been the coach of the national team, and those guys have all had good things to say about him. But it's hard for me to find positive words to describe Coach K.
And we'll leave it at that for Coach K here. Thank you for what you've done for the game. Go the hell away.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Just go. No, we don't need you anymore. Well, man, this is exciting, man. I'm excited to have Kentucky back in the tournament. I'm excited for the. It's been too long to have this much energy around Kentucky basketball. And man, is there any final thoughts you have about this team or this tournament as we start wrapping up here?
It's been a lot of fun to watch this team. These guys seem like they've really come together. They seem like good dudes. And I wish the best for all of them going forward. We're going to get a number of them back, but a few of these guys are graduating and moving on. But thanks for a good season, guys. Specifically you, Oscar Shibwe, for being just the most wonderful human being, and just being a light in this dark world right now and playing for all the right reasons. I hope you have so much success, and can take care of your family and all the people back home that you talk about. And I hope you win that Player of the Year, because you are fully deserving. You've put up amazing stats, and what a fun player to watch.
Absolutely. And man, I mean, we could talk for hours on all this, on this tournament here, man. I'll say one quick thing. Bellarmine should be in the tournament. They should be in the tournament, not Jacksonville freaking State, even though that's my wife's alma mater. Bellarmine should be in the tournament. NCAA, hear me out. But Greg, as we start finishing up here, I got one last question for you. And this is what I ask my guests now at the end of every show. One thing that I'm trying to do with my life these days is that I'm trying to help cultivate an attitude of gratitude. And every day when I wake up, I either say out loud or I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. And so I want to ask you that question too. Right now in your life, what are 3 things that you're grateful for?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, for one, good health. I have not caught COVID yet to this point. So, I'm happy about that. I'm grateful for my family. They've been so supportive as I've been moving. They drove down here this weekend, so I didn't have to watch the SEC tournament alone. So, I'm very grateful for them and the support they've provided me in this new venture. And then I'm grateful for this Kentucky basketball team, giving me a reason to cheer, and to be hopeful again. And I'm hoping that we get this 9th national title this year.
Absolutely, man. The power of sports is a wonderful thing. And I'm excited for this tournament. And let's see how they do, man. Tell my listeners if they want to follow you, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter at the Greg Watson or the Greg Watson. So give me a follow. I'll follow you back. And hopefully I'll be back on this show before too long to talk about whatever, Dan. You hit me up and I'll be there.
All right, man. Well, hey, we'll keep that invitation open, brother. This is probably the first good positive episode we've done with you, because the last couple we've done has always been a silver line of tragedy. So this has been good.
Yeah, things are looking up. Even now, when so much bad stuff is happening, there's still positive things in the world. So,
amen.
Focus on those, and like you said, remember the things that you're grateful for each and every day, because there's a lot to be grateful for. And if we're all just thinking about that and putting positivity out into the world, then it's going to come right back to us. So,
all right, man. Well, hey, I'm excited for the positivity of seeing Kentucky play here, and we'll catch you next time. Go Cats.
Go Cats.